Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the How to Live Slow podcast. Today is a really fun one. So my friend Susanna from the Nordic Mum and I hosted a series of Clubhouse chats way back in February, maybe January, February, when Clubhouse was first a thing. If you don't know what Clubhouse is, it actually doesn't really matter. Suffice it to say that we loved our chats so much that we decided to record one as a podcast instead and share it with you here today. So this is less of an interview and more of a conversation between two friends talking about something that we're both really passionate about, sharing our experiences and our beliefs and our choices. And we talk about things like burnout, how to be present, our favorite productivity and organization styles to support our slow living lifestyles, the choices that we've made, how to deal with FOMO, family connection, and she also shares quite cool stuff about the Nordic lifestyle and how that relates to slow living. If you have listened to the podcast for a while, you'll probably know that I'm a Scandinavian lover, of course, so I am really excited to chat. That was a really fun part of the chat for me. I love different cultures. Another thing you may not know about me as a side note is that I actually studied international business and supply chain management at university because I am just so obsessed with the world and different cultures and how we're all so different and what we can take from each culture and learn from. And I also have a family travel channel on YouTube where we've documented a lot of our travels over the years, and we spent some time in Denmark as well, so that was amazing. Susanna's actually from Finland and she's got I love her perspective on slow living, so I'm sure you are going to love it as well. I will leave you there and enjoy the chat and have a good week. See you next week for another episode as well. Hi Susanna, how are you going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, it's great to chat today. So do you want to give your we're talking about slow living. Do you want to get started with what slow living means to you?
Yes, so coming from the Nordic countries, I always make a point that we actually live very much slow living in Finland and all the Nordic countries. And I think to me, slow living is understanding busyness and what is causing the busyness for you, and understand to say no things that are not necessary or required. And slowness is not just about, I think the slow living and the slow life is started in Italy about the cooking, the slow cooked meals and slow food.
Yeah.
It's not just about food, but it's just kind of a lifestyle choice that you opt out to stay away from. Perhaps for someone it is the digital devices and saying no to the busyness, and might even be more like hermit type of a lifestyle where you are in a country, in a bush, in a farm, living out of the grid, which is kind of like the extreme definition of slow living and slow life. And it's about being more present and creating space in your life for those things that matters, like family and friends, and yes, having those slow meals with your family and sharing this really uke, like the Danish would say, cozy moment. That would kind of be long-winded answer what for me is slow living.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that it's not an easy thing to really define in one simple short thing, because it goes against so much of what our culture is. Maybe not the Nordic culture, but definitely the Western culture, of this idea that there's a goal that we should be working towards, we should hustle for it, do whatever it takes, get ourselves to a point of burnout. And I think that slow living can be the opposite of all of that and say, well, what feels good for me? What are my values? How do I want to live my life? And asking the question, well, why am I working towards that goal? Is it because I want to, or is it because that's just what everybody else is doing or what society is telling me to do?
Yes. So, and what did you say about the burnout is like burnout is seen as like almost a hip thing, that it's happening for everybody because we're so busy.
Yeah.
Burnout to me is, and I've gone through a small burnout myself back in the day when I had my product business.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just like a sign that you have to slow down, that your body and your mind is telling you that this is not healthy, this rat race, this constant busyness. And the more busy you were, the less productive you became. And you just realized that you were just so overwhelmed with everything you couldn't do, you couldn't focus, and you couldn't think, that it is just telling you in all aspects in your life, the universe is calling and telling you that you just have to tune it down, and you need to rest and relax and start from the beginning, like boundaries in your life.
It's like a mixed message, or the incorrect message, that the more we work and the more important we are, the busier we'll be. But actually, to me, like, the ultimate luxury is having more freedom about how you spend your time, and being able to work to a point where you say, okay, and that's it for today. And having that sovereignty over yourself, to me, is the ultimate luxury. And to be in a place in your mind where you know that you deserve rest and that you can take it when you need it, so that you can be more productive when you do actually work. But like you said, when you're feeling burnt out and you're on the edge and you're constantly, all you're doing is working or doing stuff, you're not very productive because you never take a break.
And I think for us coming from the Nordics, like, we have habit of putting the life before work. To me, essentially about the slow living. And I think in Australia, I think it used to be that life before work and work after. But
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe nowadays it has changed. But I think the kind of like, those little things like getting up in the morning and connecting with the nature, having that walk, whether it's surf or walk at the beach or just walk in the park or walk into the bus stop on your way to work and listening to the nature. I think all that is just kind of connecting with the nature. And I have to say, coming back to my burnout, I just spent 2 weeks lying in a sofa and reading books. So my friend, who is a life coach, said to me when I said, this is my symptoms, I think I'm burning the candle from the both ends. And she was like, yeah, you definitely are. And she just said to me, I think you just need to have a trashy novels, whatever it is that you want to read, just read and don't do anything with your business. And that was like the best advice ever, because I literally did spend 2 weeks. I went for walks in the beach, and we live near the beach, and I haven't been really spending time in the beach because I was too busy working and trying to make my business succeed. And then I just spent these 2 weeks just reading and putting my mind kind of like in the back burner, not thinking about any business or anything. And I realized that I had become grumpy mother and a grumpy wife, and neglecting my friends and not even trying to build new friendships for this place that we have moved into. And it was such an eye-opening, because when you really stop your life and you start looking your eyes so differently, like you're like, wow, all these things that I have missed and all these things that I have allowed my body to go through, and things that are happening around me, and I don't even realize them because I'm blinded. I'm too busy to let go.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, when you were saying about having 2 weeks to just chill out and to recalibrate, the instant sort of body reaction that I have, even though I love slow living and I know the value and benefit of it. And so I imagine a lot of listeners will probably feel the same, that instant gut feeling of like, oh, that is just not possible for me. If I did that, my whole world would fall apart, and I couldn't do that. And I think that that's exactly the time when you do actually need to do that. And also, I know we've talked a lot about it before, like, create that life that you actually don't need a break from.
Yes.
So put that slow living into every day.
And that actually brings me to a point that I was interested to hear your thoughts, because I don't know about you, but I follow a lot of big name people who've been there, done that, and they're like women with children, or like Jenna Kutcher, for a good example, or Amy Porterfield, or even Tracy Harris and Moms with Hustle podcast. And they all are kind of like, yes, we've done the hard yakka. We've managed to get our business up and going, and now we can kind of take it slower. We only work a few days a week. And it's almost like they're selling this lifestyle to you, that it is possible to have a successful career, have whatever it is that you dream about your life, and how you want to spend time with your family, and you don't have to work that hard. But it's almost, to me, gives this misconception that success is easy when it actually is not.
Yeah, you're so right. And that material success, or that big numbers of financial success, it does take more than what the surface level looks like, I think. Yeah, you're right. And it does take a little bit of sacrifice and an understanding about, okay, I'm going to have to dive deep here for a little while and grow this thing until it starts to get its own legs. So sometimes it can be worth it to say, all right, well, if it's only going to be a short period of time, I can do this. But then you do have to realize when enough's enough and to start bringing back that slow living, as long as it's working towards something that is actually what you want as well, isn't it?
And I think there's lots of misconceptions, I think, amongst women that, you know, the more busier you are, the more successful you are. And that is kind of like, no, it's not. It's like the quality over quantity. And a good example, this is now my kids are back at school. I get a whole 5 hours and 45 minutes to myself in a day. And oh my God, I've been so jam-packed of things. I've edited podcasts, I've done interviews, I'm like doing this one. I've done all the graphics and everything ready. I'm like a batch work, and that's one of my things. I love the batch work until May. And that means that then I free up time. I've done those tasks and now I free up time to do what I need to do to grow my podcast and my blog and the Nordic Mum kind of in a different level.
Yeah, I do agree with you. That's one of the things, and you bring up a really good point about organization and productivity, because I know a lot of people are really focused on, well, how do I be more productive, and how do I, what's my best organizational system? How do I get myself organized? And I think that there are a couple of things that I really use and recommend, and one of those is time blocking. So, brain dump everything that you've got to do, and then, like you said, do things in batches. So if you've said, okay, on Wednesday, I'm going to do the laundry, then do the laundry on Wednesday, and don't worry, don't let it bother you that there's a pile of washing, because you know that you've got that time set aside to do it. And that's just one basic example. But the other important thing about organizational hacks and productivity hacks is that if you've got too much to do on your list, no matter how organized and productive you are, it's still too much to do. Right?
True.
So you have to really look at what your actual priorities are and figure out what can you do less of. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of actually figuring that out, because we have a lot of attachments around the fact that, particularly as mums, and particularly as working mums, around what it means to be a good mum and all the things that we need to be doing to tick off the box of achieving the good mum and the work-life balance.
Yeah, and look, one of the things that I do with my to-do list is I have 3 things every day that I need to complete. So just 3 things. My list might be like page of, A4, but I only concentrate on 3 things every day.
Yep.
If I get around to do more than 3 things, yes, that's great. But it's only those 3 things that I will say myself, okay, I'm satisfied now that I have done those 3 things. Now I can relax. And okay, like at the moment, I'm painting my house. So my fingers are absolutely white. So I know that after I've done those 3 things, I can concentrate. And yes, it brings me a slight pleasure in seeing my house transforming in front of my eyes. But doing that painting is one of those important things as well. But it's also kind of like relaxing to splash of paint on the walls.
Yeah.
So having done those 3 things, now we can go into paint, or vice versa. I do the painting in the morning, depending on the weather, because it's outside job. And then I do those 3 things. So another thing I wanted to say to me has been a menu planner. With a busy family and kids particularly, you want to know what you're eating, what time of the day, and you want to know what's in kids' lunchboxes. So I always do menu planning on a weekend, and I ask my kids, what is that you want to do? And they both give me, what they want to see in the menu for the dinner, and we put it in. And then we use the dinner, which was done and eaten, and whatever is left over as they're in lunch boxes in their thermos. And that's like a tip that I get from another mother, just to warm up the food in the morning, put it in the thermos, and that's their lunchbox sorted. And just a simple thing of planning the menu, it's just gets the stress levels down. I get to go to the shops. I can buy just what we need as per the plan, rather than being one of those scrambling parents in the shop thinking, oh my God, what we're going to eat tonight, what we're going to eat tomorrow night. And then you end up buying things that you don't want, you don't need, they're expensive, and you just get stressed.
Yeah, so true. So so many little ways that we can support ourselves so that and I think what you're saying there is it's important as mums or as parents to reduce our stress as much as possible so that we're not actually like taking that out on the kids as well. Like when we're stressed, then we're more reactive to the things that, they're doing as just kids do. So slow living really benefits not just us, but them as well.
Yeah. Do you think that slow living is also, because I've read it some places that slow is also about the organic, the whole foods, but for us in the Nordics, we take slow living as part of like being sustainable and eco-friendly as well. Do you think that it has a place there as well?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think that, well, slow living for me is like stepping back from that hustle, which has got to do with capitalism and consumption. And so one portion of slow living for me is needing less. And that's got to do with FOMO and buying things because we're influenced to buy them, or that we have this kind of house or that kind of car, all of, even the clothes we wear and our accessories and everything. Like there's this not having an attachment to those material things reduces your requirement for money and requirement for lifestyle, which I think is more sustainable. And if you are needing less stuff, you need to work less, you don't need to earn as much money, you've probably got more time on your hands to spend time in nature, you're more connected to nature. So then it's like a spiral thing. The more you do, the more you appreciate that slow living is, without even meaning to be, it is a sustainable way. I don't think though that you need to certainly live in the country or that you need to be an organic family or whatever. It doesn't need to look any particular way. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is like it can be whatever you define it to be.
Exactly.
Maybe there's a part of you that needs that slow living. You might have a busy job in the city and you're fine with that. But it's like when you come home, you are in a slow burn and, everything around you, the way you, live your life is required to be slow.
Yeah.
And that's just you. And what you said about sustainability and all that, I also think that because we are so influenced by the marketing, like you said, I think the slow information diet almost, or like connecting yourself away from all that is important. Like I don't watch television, like I just don't have time for it, and I haven't watched for years, but I don't have the need for it either anymore. I might like once a year binge watch a thing in Netflix, and that's me. But I don't understand any of the conversations that goes around me about real, like television. And I'm like, oh my God, that just sounds so boring. Like, why don't you read a book instead where you can use your imagination? And it's like that, like we try to, protect our children, of course, from the information overload and all these things that you get sent over, digital ways, and minimize their time in computers and digital devices because they're too young. In my opinion, they don't need any of that. But I think it's like, it's difficult. I know we live in a digital world, and slow living is not about not having that digital, device or access to those digital devices at all. But I think it's about being meaningful and thinking, how can I do it in a way that it supports me rather than hinders of having this slow life?
Yeah, exactly. Like as in you use the technology for your own benefit rather than being used by it or being, sucked into it and not feeling like you're in control of scroll and because if you're not using the product, you are the product, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg uses us as much as we use his platform.
So what are some of the things? So I love that you don't watch TV. I think that's really cool. I must admit, I do watch a little bit of TV, but for me, it's like I don't have it on all day. It's not on, watch it in the daytime or whatever. I just usually sit down and watch a show at night. But the kids as well, they have screens and I don't want them to be, well, they don't have their own devices. They just have this TV. I don't want them to be missing out on things, but there's also something to be said for missing out, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a catch-22 because my oldest son is coming to an age where he needs to know certain things about computer and he needs to do some things about computer. He needs to go and, learn it at school. But it's like, I don't know, I protect him maybe a little bit too much in that sense, because then at home we have iPad, which they're not allowed to touch. It's only for Skyping with the grandparents.
Yeah.
They have computer. They don't have no computer. It's my computer. So we have half an hour computer time 3 times a week with both of the boys. So they get to use the school programs and get to learn how to use the mouse and the keyboard. And they're only 6 and 8. That is plenty. But then they have friends who have like Xbox and Box and pads and phones or whatever, 6 and 8. And so when they can visit them for play days, they come back and say, oh, can I have an iPhone? No.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, you're 6 and you're 8. You don't need to have an iPhone. And I have to say, Stephen Jobs, he didn't give his kids iPad or iPhone until they were 12 or 13.
Yeah. And that says a lot, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I do understand, like when kids have a little turn of a screen, they go on and they keep asking, can I have a screen? Can I have a turn? Can I, this, that, the other. And it's our job. And this is where boundaries come in, right? It's our job to say no if that's the answer and to hold firm on that and to be okay with being the mean parent and for them to be unhappy and to also manage those emotions when they are disappointed. And I think when you're living a rushed life, it's so much easier to give in and go, oh, okay, yeah, fine, because I've got to do these other things anyway. But when you have the time to slow down and really be there when they are disappointed and upset that they can't, that you're holding this boundary for them, not just screens, but any other kind of boundary. And so I think people think of boundaries, my point there is people think of holding boundaries as having to say no to other people, but you also have to you have to be available to hold boundaries within your family as well.
And that can be so tricky with kids when they're socializing with kids and, who are you to go and tell other parents how they should raise their kids and what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But you can only set the boundaries to your children. And the best advice I heard for a long time was, I think this must have been from a book. And it said that, it's all right to set the boundaries now when they're young, because then you can be lenient when they show the trust when they're older, like when they're teenagers. You can pull them back in when they're teenagers if you have allowed them no boundaries when they were younger. You can create the boundaries when they're teenagers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it takes like the extra effort up front to sort of teach them right from wrong, to get them being more involved. And this is how we keep our kids involved in family life and to be engaged with what's going on around them, right?
Yes. And my example here is, so when my kids come home from school, if they haven't gone to a play date, they come home and we have a snack. We talk about what's happened during the day or how was their school. And usually they want to help me to do the dinner or they want to help to do the snack. So sometimes we bake muffins or sometimes we just take whatever is from the cupboards or the pantry, and they always want to help to do that. So it's kind of like a ritual for them, comforting that they get to create pancakes or they get to do the muffins, or then they help me to do the dinner and they can be part of it. So rather than them sitting in a corner with their iPad or going to their rooms to do television or whatever, and you don't even know what they're watching, I make sure that they're included on all that, because to me it's important that I know that they're comfortable for what they're doing. And I want to be part of that life. And I think that kind of builds a nice kind of a relationship between a child and a parent. I don't know how long this will last, this kind of informal ritual that we have, but I just kind of cherish it as long as we can.
It's kind of like, again, slow living comes into its own when you're trying to develop that deep family connection. And but I understand that if, listeners are here going, well, that's nice for you, but my kids are really screen addicted, or I can't see that working for us, or there's no way that they would want to get involved with helping.
But have you tried? Have you asked?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. What would be your advice to people who wanted to start making a few changes and getting started with some of this stuff?
Well, interestingly, there was this lady who said that she's going to take a page of my book. I know her physically, and we met in a park, and I said, oh, we're just going to go home. And I don't know what we were going to cook, but the kids said they want to help me to do something. But because I've always involved them, even when they were kids, and, the flowers went everywhere. And oh my God, when there's a pizza night on Friday in this house, there's double O flower on the walls and the hair and everywhere. But I said to her, it's like, because she said, they watch too much telly, and it's like, yeah, but you're the adult. Your kids are not the adult. They can tell you. They can't just go and turn it, on. You just say no, and you get them to come and spend time with you in the kitchen, help you do the dinner. And I think a majority, because they've never been asked, or maybe they even want to. And I think sometimes kids, they just crave that kid, the attention from their adults. They just want to be, noticed, and they just want to be there. But we adults, it's like, oh, I'm too busy doing the dinner. You just go there with the iPad, and it's the easy option to shush them and remove them. And then we're only interested when the dinner is on a table to speaking to them. So that's a certain, example for the kids that, well, yeah, you're only important when we're eating dinner, but not when we're actually cooking it.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I would like to add if I know that there's been periods of time when when I had my baby and my older son was on screens a lot because it was my way of kind of distracting him when I needed to feed the baby. And because he'd had my attention 100% all the time, he hadn't developed the ability to play independently very well. And so TV was my fallback. And then we had a period of readjustment to saying, okay, well, no screens in the morning. You can watch some TV in the afternoon, but you have to be involved with what's going on. And it's not that it's a reward, because I think as well, it doesn't need to be a reward. It's just something, it's one of many activities that are available.
Yeah. And we had the same thing, like when the kids were younger, it was definitely that they were allowed to watch more. And it's only when we have moved down the coast and we have a house and there's a yard, they have a big back garden and things to do, that it's like, we only watch, our kids are allowed to watch basically in end of Friday evening until end of Sunday, and only like a few hours a day. And you actually realize that they don't want to watch it that much. And it depends. The older one probably would watch more, but the younger one is like, oh, it's kind of boring. So they don't even have that, I don't know, the need to watch it. And then you just realize the need has been created by these devices. It's not that they actually want it. They just get addicted to their flicking and going from one thing to other. And we actually noticed that our kids were aggressive when they were watching television, became really aggro. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on with these kids? So we stopped television. And my younger one suffers from a stutter a little bit. And we found that the stutter was worse when he was watching television than when he wasn't watching. And then they say, okay, it should be the quality of things that you watch. But if you're just watching kids' programs, which should be, suitable material, we just found that, yeah, they were going aggressive and the stuttering levels were going up. And we were like, yep, that's it. You only get it in the weekends. And that's been for, I can't remember how long now.
Yeah. And like you said, it just takes time. It takes time to get adjusted to a new thing. And definitely as they get older, when they can do things like read to themselves and learn to do things on their own, and also getting them to help with stuff around the house. Like, yeah, you can watch TV, but first of all, we're going to clean this together, or we're going to cook, or help me hang out the washing and all of that stuff. And those are important life skills, I think. And I think it really all just comes back to, well, when you're more available, when you're living a slower life, you're more available to foster all of that. And when you're not stressed and you're taking care of yourself through slow living and being able to rest when you need to and things, then you have more patience for that. And it doesn't feel like a big, heavy burden.
Yeah. And I also find that you be more present in life, even when everything goes wrong, in a day when it just doesn't flow. And even then when you just practice being present and you just take it, this is what it is, and it doesn't stress you so much. I know some people do meditation to get themselves on that flow, and for some people it's that exercise and the walk, going outside or going to the gym and getting their energy levels up, like slowing down yourself even when things around you is chaos, and even things around you is screaming at you that you need to do things, but still kind of keeping that inner peace with yourself.
And how do you think, like, this is all really about creating a home that feels like a sanctuary so that you can escape and feel safe and supported at home?
Yeah, because I would say that once we done the renovations, we did a lot of things in our house to make it feel very cozy and very comfortable place to be. Yes, it has modern things on it, and it has the coastal feel to it, the Nordic minimalism, but we got rid of a lot of stuff. So like downshifting and downsizing in terms of material goods, donating, repurposing, recycling, selling them or giving them out for free, and just getting out of the stuff. And I think that also made me feel better when we explained to our kids that you have all these toys, but you don't play with them anymore. So let's just find someone who needs them, who but might not have all these toys.
Have you found that there are particular toys that last the distance, that are more conducive to like creativity and more engaging, so that they're less drawn to the other kind of technology?
Wooden toys. I just can't believe we have these wooden toys. Some of the things that they've had since they were like 2, 3 year olds, and they still play with them.
Yeah.
So I think this might be Montessori time. So they are basically just wooden blocks, like a longish, thin wooden blocks. And the idea is that you can build houses and roads and train lines, whatever the kids thinks that they can build, or towers from these things. And they've had them for years, and they're still today play with them. But then, that new plastic robot that they got from the grandparents, it's long destroyed and sits in the corner. It doesn't work anymore. And it's like, again, more plastic that you need to put on the recycling or see how you can sustainably get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. We've got lots of building, and we've even got like the boys play with kitchen toys. Like, so we have a little kitchen, and they've got wooden like food and things, and yeah, they just absolutely love it. And I remember when I bought the kitchen, everyone said to me, "Oh, but boys don't play with kitchens. Boys won't. Yeah, you won't get much use out of that. I bet you that won't be a thing." And it's probably 4 years old now. It's still one of their most played with things, that and the train track and Lego.
Yeah, it's funny what things. A Lego is a great example of longevity. Like, we have Legos that my husband used to play, and he brought them, or his grandparents sent them from overseas, and my kids still play with them today. Like, these are like, oh my God, 30, 40-year-old Legos, and still going strong.
Well, I don't know about you, but is there anything else you wanted to sort of share about slow living? Maybe like a top tip or something, if someone's like, okay, well, all of that sounds really amazing and I want that for my family.
We all want it.
I think we do. I think deep down we do. And I think if you don't, you're probably more so just feeling that it's not possible, or that it seems like too much of a change. So for those people, what would you say?
You have to look at your life first. Like, where is the busyness coming from, and understand saying no. Like, I'm a yes girl. I'm a people pleaser in a, deep down, and I've had to learn to say no. And I think lots of it is a mindset, to be passionate, and you need to have faith on yourself when you start doing changes. And don't do all the changes in a one go. Just look at your life. It's like, okay, what can I change? What is that one thing that will make a difference in my life that I can change now? And it will have a better impact in my life. Whether it's your diet, whether it's your mindset, whether it's the way you treat people around you, maybe it's sustainability, maybe it's the house that you live in. What is that thing that makes you think, okay, if I do this, I'm going to have a slower life and I'm going to be more in the slower living. So do that one thing. And I would also say that there's these statistics that, you must have seen marketing materials where they say 21, days, and, you lose weight, and it's always a 21-day course and of this and that. Statistically speaking, it gets 2 to 3 months, a new behavior or a new habit to be actually ingrained in your brain. So you have to give yourself time to adopt those changes, and not just think that, oh, I've done it for a week and I don't see any difference and I don't feel any different. Change is slow. So you need to really get your brain thinking and adapting those changes slowly.
Yeah, I love that. I would probably say my tip for getting started is to look at how you value your own time. So like, whatever you're saying yes to means you're saying no to something else.
Good one.
So have a look at, right, well, what do I really want to be doing, and what am I actually doing, and what needs to change?
Yes, I agree. So true.
And it's hard though, right? This is all kind of like and I just want to say, like, everybody is 100% worthy of having that life and of doing less, and is 100% worthy of taking a rest.
Yes.
I think that is like what we said at the start. Being busy is a culturally badge of honor, but I think that the ultimate luxury is being able to rest and not feel guilty about it.
Yes, I agree. I suppose in today's world, we are made to feel guilty resting and not checking our emails all the time, or not checking the social media, and not being on top of the things. So it can be difficult, but it is possible.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives today. I really love a chat with you,
Pleasure.
as always. that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.